Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be talking about skill speed and to some degree spell speed. Now the title of the video specifically mentions skill speed Gunbreaker, and that is going to be the core of our discussion throughout this video, because during a live stream today I found that Gunbreaker made for breaking a lot of the rules as to why skill speed has classically been not so reliable in the past for a lot of jobs. So I want to use that as a discussion point here in the YouTube video. Now before I go any further, this isn't part of the information blitz or the media tour coverage that I was planning, but because I'm still using footage and information that's all subject to change when it comes to Gunbreaker and stuff from the media tour, I figure I'll just include the watermark, say this at the beginning, cover my own butt and respect Square Enix. So yeah, skill speed Gunbreaker, the more we talked about it on stream today, the more we realized it was a very real possibility that people specifically not looking to be Omni tanks might actually find some interest in a skill speed Gunbreaker build. Now, I'm of course no expert on tanking. I'm no Xeno. Let's just make that 100% clear. So I'm not going to tell you that this is what you should be doing on Gunbreaker. I'm also not going to tell you that I've mapped this out, that, it's better than crit. I'm not saying it's better than anything. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's what you should do. I'm simply presenting an idea. So please, tank experts, people who do your min-maxing or theory crafting, please, you are the experts on this. So when the time comes, you tell me and you tell everyone what is correct and what isn't. But with that, let's talk about why skill speed could be so good on Gunbreaker and what's made it good for certain jobs in the past. So skill speed has had a lot of issues, and spell speed, of course, has had a lot of issues across multiple facets. One has always been resource management. Now, of course, for melees, that's a non-factor anymore. So skill speed already kind of goes up in the possibility of being useful for certain jobs. I fully expect skill speed samurai to emerge again, though they may actually run into the opposite problem, and we can talk about that a little bit later as well. Spell speed black mages, I wouldn't be surprised to see again, because it's all about how much it actually interrupts with the flow of your job. Ninja doesn't want skill speed a lot of the time because they don't have a lot of abilities that scale off of it. They have very precise timings for their windows they're trying to meet, and it just makes their ninjutsus clip. So it generally doesn't end up being great. Other jobs have an issue where their rotation needs to flow at a certain speed, or maybe they clip a dot early, or again, their abilities don't line up with their burst windows, or their GCDs get too quick for their OGCDs, and their OGCDs aren't available at the right time. So there's been so many issues with it. The fact that Gunbreaker has so many solutions to it in terms of its job design is actually pretty remarkable. So the most basic thing Gunbreaker has, and honestly this isn't an argument for why skill speed is good, but it's just something we should know. Their basic 1-2-3 combo, their brutal shell, it has healing, it has a shield on it. I can't really say that that's like why skill speed's great, because that's like saying that warriors combo that gives them HP back, that's like saying that has amazing skill speed synergy. It's certainly a thought, but it's not really the reason why you would want to spec skill speed on your Gunbreaker. The same goes for Solid Barrel. Solid Barrel gives you your cartridges, on top of one of your other abilities that you can use, and your AoE combo. But I mean, all the jobs, generally speeding up their global cooldowns increases their resource generation. So those two things we need to acknowledge, but they're not really the point we're trying to make. It's when we look at the abilities you can spend your cartridges on that we start seeing more synergy with skill speed for Gunbreaker. Now, two of your abilities don't really matter much for this. Faded Circle is an AoE option, and Burst Strike is a single target option. Okay, cool, if you get more cartridges, you get more of those throughout the fight, but they're not really core to the discussion we're having here. Gnashing Fang is a new type of ability that's been added in Final Fantasy XIV in Shadowbringers. Now, we've had Imperial Arrow in the past, which was a weapon skill that was off the global cooldown, but had its own cooldown and was classified as a weapon skill and benefited from skill speed in terms of its recast time. Gnashing Fang is on the global cooldown, meaning, it shares that same 2.5 second base, but upon using it, it goes on its own 35 second cooldown. That being said, it is still a weapon skill, so in the build that I played, my skill speed got me to 2.4 on my GCD, and I think my Gnashing Fang recast was like 33.83. So you can see that even just little bits of skill speed, add a lot for Gnashing Fang because it has such a long recast time and it's a weapon skill. So you of course now have to consider, does skill speed get me extra Gnashing Fangs across an entire fight? Now again, that's something all jobs need to think about when they think about skill speed, but it's unique in the way that Gnashing Fang actually works. Because when you dive a little deeper, there's even more things within Gnashing Fang that benefit from it. Now, one of the big things about the Gnashing Fang combo is, ready to rip, ready to tear, and ready to gouge, the effects you get from the three skills within that Gnashing Fang combo. However, in between each of those skills, you use those buffs on a continuation ability, which allows you to do an OGCD with a 1-second recast, and you do it once between each skill. Now, most of the time, OGCDs don't benefit from skill speed because they're either not dots or it doesn't help them come up more frequently during a fight. Because continuation's directly tied to an ability that benefits from skill speed, and you can only use it the more often you get Gnashing Fang, the more Gnashing Fangs you get, the more continuations you get. So now you have to factor in the entire combo as to, what am I getting extra for having so-and-so skill speed. So I'm really curious to see if that ends up outweighing a lot of the other stats. I still think by the end of the expansion, crit's going to be king. There's always the possibility direct hit is really, really strong at the beginning of the expansion, like it was in Stormblood. And then there's always the fallback stat and that of determination and tenacity. Maybe. I won't laugh too much. But it's interesting how there's so much synergy with skill speed for Gunbreaker, and I'm not even done explaining it. So we've got a few other things that skill speed actually overcomes on Gunbreaker. For one, we have to remember that both skill speed and spell speed, they do have a slight scaling in terms of dot damage. They did this because they don't affect how quickly dots tick, so they just made it so they determine how much more damage a dot does. So the fact that we have 2 more dot abilities on Gunbreaker means they're part of the discussion. Now you have your AoE dot, which obviously is off the global cooldown. It's not benefiting from the recast speed, but it is a dot. So at least it's getting some sort of scaling from your skill speed. It's just not a whole lot. But more interestingly is Sonic Break. Now, a lot of the times we've laughed at this since we first saw it, because we're like, wait, why did we get rid of Fracture? Why did we get rid of Scourge? But then we have Sonic Break. Like, we've gotten rid of all of the here's a random dot on the global cooldown abilities across various expansions, and all of a sudden we're giving one to Gunbreaker. But it does something different than the rest of those did. All of those old ones, Fracture, Touch of Death, all of those were still on the global cooldown, and they shared the global cooldown with every other skill. Sonic Break has a 15-second duration, but its recast is 30 seconds at base, even though the ability is on the global cooldown. And just like Gnashing Fang, Sonic Break, once again, its recast is reduced from having skill speed. So you don't run into the issue that you've had in the past where you need to refresh your dot, but because your skill speed's kind of screwed up, it just redoing your dot just doesn't feel right. You may clip it early or anything along those lines. Sonic Break doesn't have that problem. Sonic Break is literally 15 seconds and then whatever the remaining recast time is, and then you do it again. Now, I don't know off the top of my head, I guess, if Sonic Break is something you can incorporate outside of your combo. I'd imagine you'd have to be not in the middle of a combo to do this safely. But that being said, the fact that it can never clip itself because of your skill speed, and you would get more Sonic Breaks across an entire fight, it blows my mind that literally every Gunbreaker skill, if you took a lot of these philosophies and you applied them to other jobs, you could make skill speed better for other jobs in a lot of ways. But the fact that Gunbreaker just has so many of them, and it is a job that feels like it's meant to be faster paced, especially when you're going through those Gnashing Fang combos, it just generally feels like a faster paced tank, kind of like Dark Knight. The fact that it benefits from this just might make it at least more fun to play with skill speed, if not more effective. You may see people doing this just because it's pretty funny and it's pretty fun. Their remaining OGCD offensive skill, Danger Zone, Blasting Zone, sorry, at level 80, that doesn't benefit at all. And that could be a really big deterrent because I think it's like 700 potency as an OGCD on a 30-second cooldown. So obviously you want damage, you want crit, you want direct hit, you want to make sure that you're getting procs on that big hit. But I'm really curious to see what the math people figure out, because I'm sure they've already started thinking about it, already worked on it, maybe even using current 4.5 calculations and maybe projecting that at some point in the future they may be applicable to the various numbers that we have in the future. But man, the fact that skill speed, I was really hoping skill speed and spell speed were going to be combined as haste, because there's just so many not consistent design philosophies behind skill speed and spell speed, and I'd like to see it be more useful on more than 1 or 2 jobs. Skill speed Samurai is a very high probability, but even Samurai runs into a potential issue now with EI Jutsu's changes. So EI Jutsu got changed to a 1.3 second recast once you get a trait, or I'm sorry, a 1.3 second cast time once you get a certain trait. If you have too much skill speed at some point, there's the potential of you losing the ability to weave an OGCD, which seems to be the whole reason why EI Jutsu eventually goes down to 1.3. So you can use an EI Jutsu, you can then, Shinten or Sene or Guren or whatever it is you want to do in between them, and it's not going to clip, at least not unless you have huge latency. But does having more skill speed with it scaling, the skill speed on the 1.3 second cast versus the 2.5 second recast, is there eventually a point where it kind of loses its optimal amount? Maybe, and maybe that number's so high that, you know, we won't ever see it. Although with, you know, the haste buff that samurais naturally have, maybe it's not as far away as I initially thought. And Black Mages, you know, again, I'm no Black Mage expert, but I fully see spell speed potentially returning early in the expansion. I mean, they've got a lot more spells to cast during their fire phase now. You know, they've got ways of dealing with downtime and whatnot, and it could just be as useful as it was at another point. You know, Black Mages have always had this affinity for spell speed, and I expect it to return. But I still look at other jobs like Ninja, and I don't know, Monk is kind of in a weird place. They don't, I guess they still technically have to worry about the clipping of Demolish, so there's always that problem. Six-Sided Star is such a long cooldown that even if you could reduce it, it wouldn't change the effective use of it, so it just doesn't scale as well. During AoE rotations, I guess skill speed would make more sense, but I don't know, there's elements of other jobs that just don't make sense. At least they don't make sense for the use of skill speed. And then Gunbreaker runs into another issue where even if skill speed, let's say crit skill speed, just complete, you know, not saying it is, but let's say that crit skill speed ends up being the two go-to stats for Gunbreaker. Anyone who omni tanks is going to look at that and be like, I really hope none of the gear overlaps with Gunbreaker and like the other tanks. Like Warriors maybe wants maybe enough skill speed to get 5 Fell Cleaves in, but they're not gonna want like a bonus like 1800, 2000 skill speed like the Gunbreaker might. And then Paladin, skill speed doesn't work on their magic spells at all. So there's literally 10 seconds out of every minute where the stat is completely dead weight. Kind of like how, you know, direct hit ends up being a little bit less effective on Warrior during the inner release window because they're all direct hits. Now, of course, Inner Chaos and Chaotic Cyclone also. You could just see, like, obviously it's not the only stat with an issue, but I don't think the other tanks are going to want you to have skills. Maybe Dark Knight? I don't know, maybe Dark Knight with, you know, the extra Siphon Strikes, the extra MP to get to extra Edges of Darkness. Maybe it scales okay for them. But I don't think tanks are really going to want to omni-tank with the exact same set of gear. You know, maybe you hope the armor pieces are different enough that there's not as much overlap, but you're looking at accessories, you know, at least one of those rings is probably, you know, both of those rings are probably going to be things that you start to maybe have some problems with the Gunbreaker's entire, you know, itemization. But it's just a fun discussion to have. I actually kind of want to try it when it comes out just to see how it feels, even if it's not optimal, just for fun's sake. I kind of want to see what a full skill speed Gunbreaker actually ends up looking like, especially during the Gnashing Fang combos and whatnot. But again, I'm not a tank expert. I'm not number crunching on this. It's just a fun little idea that I thought I'd present to you all on YouTube so you could discuss it and you could discuss the stat, because I think it is something worth discussing, because it doesn't seem like, other than changing our calculations going from 70 to 80, like they changed any of the stats. You know, tenacity could maybe get memed on as much as it did before, and, you know, maybe direct hits is overpowered early in the expansion, crit's still overpowered at the end of it, skill and spell speed might fall in the, you know, weird places still. So there's not really much to indicate that much is changing on that front. So let me know what you think about skill speed, spell speed, and of course the potential really fast Gunbreaker builds that might be coming out now that I've suggested them. Be sure to put your comments in the comment section below and discuss it as much as you want. But that's going to be it from me. I kind of want to have a few more discussions like this regarding certain thoughts on stuff I learned from the media tour, things I'd like to see in regards to specific jobs and whatnot, and discussions people have been having and I've been having on my live stream. So be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. I'm sure we'll be doing plenty of these videos to keep the hype going before Shadowbringers. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care.